This week, I tried to replace this laptop stand with something made from the worst plywood you've ever seen. What could go wrong? Hey everybody, Pete here from Northern Works. So a few months ago I broke my neck and it meant that I couldn't really work at my desk for too long without my right arm going completely numb. So I built this incredibly functional laptop stand out of some offcuts of wood that I found in the shed. It's definitely helped with the numb arm, but we all know that functional is really just another way of saying ugly. So I decided to sketch something a bit more interesting and got to work. Now, I don't want anyone to be under the impression that I know what I'm doing. I mean, I'm using an old snowboard to display my painter's tape collection, and I've already cut my finger before we've even got any blades out. But I do have a bit of experience of like DIY, home improvement, and honestly, I saw this piece as an opportunity to learn, get some new skills, and to challenge myself in some new ways. I'd had this idea to create a kind of overhanging stand inspired by modernist furniture, architecture, using this combination of angles and curves to raise the screen to just the right height for me to work at while still giving me use of the keyboard. I made this cardboard prototype to check if my angles would actually work, and I wanted to use it as a template as well to keep my pieces consistent and hopefully make everything easier to put together. For this project, I was trying to spend as little as possible, and I found what I thought would be the perfect piece of 9mm plywood. It only cost me a couple of pounds, so I thought it was a pretty good decision, but spoiler alert, it wasn't. Anyway, I knew I wanted to leave the top grain, I guess, showing on the final piece. So I gave a bit of extra thought as to which lines on my template to run with the lines of the piece. Honestly, this took me way longer to figure out than it probably should have, although I am glad I put the extra care into it. This was one of my goals for the project, was to put in a little bit of extra time and effort that would be needed to make finessed quality pieces rather than, my usual, that'll do kind of approach to DIY. Anyway, I eventually figured it out and finished up my cut lines. One final check of my measurements against the sketches that I'd made, and it's away to the workshop for sewing. Okay, just one last triple check. And now it's time for the workshop. I made this jig to do double duty as both a clamp and as a kind of fence for the circular saw. It was pretty good at making straight cuts, but honestly it was such a pain to reset every time, and the straight cuts weren't necessarily in the right places by the time that the piece was shuffled around and the clamps were down. There must be a better solution, and if you've got any, I'd love it if you'd leave them in the comments. I'll check those out. The jig was especially useless for the two leg pieces, which have this combination of angled sides and a bevel along the top and the bottom. In the end, I marked the angles on the bench top and I tried to line the piece up with them, but like I said, there's definitely a better solution. I fiddled with seating the end pieces in the clamping jig, ready to cut out the curves with the jigsaw, before I realised it would actually just be simpler to clamp directly to the workbench. It is a good reminder that the simplest solutions are usually the best one. it's time for glue up. This was probably one of the most nervous parts of the project for me. I knew that getting a good finished product would mean getting good positioning, fit and clamping pressure, and I wasn't confident about any of it, to be honest. So I moved it back inside for a day or two, and I had fiddled a bit with the clamping setup to get everything a bit more even, and I was reasonably happy with how the glue up turned out, but it could definitely be better with a jig for the odd angled legs and probably more clamps. 4 clamps is definitely not enough clamps. Oh, I hate the noise of the orbital sander. I had wanted to round off the top edges of the side panel joints into a smoother curve, so I went at them pretty aggressively with the orbital sander. Unfortunately, the top layer of this plywood just isn't thick enough or strong enough, and almost immediately I started to get these large flat spots where the top layer just gave way to the lighter wood underneath. Honestly, I was pretty disappointed. I'd wanted a nice clean edge for this piece, but sometimes an idea just starts to take over, doesn't it? And it kind of reminded me of a sunburnt edge on an old photograph, so I fully leaned into it and scuffed all of the edges in the same way. I don't ever totally like the end result, but it's a look, I guess. Hey, let me know in the comments, do you lean into your mistakes as a creative feature, or are you someone that throws it away and starts again? Anyway, I sanded the rest of the piece up to 180 and then fixed this wobbly leg. You can't really tell in the footage, but it was starting to rain pretty hard on my little outside workshop, so I took it all inside for finishing. I chose a natural beeswax finish for this piece, and that was really only for one reason. I mentioned this is a learning piece for me, and I wanted to really see the fruits of my labour. You know, I could have chosen a different finish that reduces the imperfections, or even probably just painted the whole thing. But this way, to see my joinery and my shaping, I can see all the things that I want to improve and what I need to practice more in the future. Also, the beeswax smells bloody lovely. So, am I pleased with my new laptop stand? Yeah, I am. Is it perfect? No, definitely not. But it's just as functional as the old one, and I think it's an improvement in terms of aesthetics. But honestly, like more than anything, it's just made me really excited to try and build more things. You know, I want to hone the design and the wood crafting and the other kind of making skills that I need to build stuff that I really want to use and things that we want to see around our home. One of the challenges that I've set for me this year is to consume less and to create more. I've been really inspired by others in the YouTube maker community, you know, Laura Camp, Get Hands Dirty, Michael Arm, Four Eyes Furniture. There's so many others, but I just feel really encouraged and enthusiastic to start trying again. I've got this big list of projects that I'm going to use each and every one of them as an opportunity to get better, to learn, to try new things, and to put it out there almost as a kind of record of how things are going. If that sounds like something that you are interested in following along, then please consider subscribing. It'd be great to have you around and you'd be notified of whenever any new episodes come out. But honestly, more importantly, I'd love it if you would leave a comment. Let me know what did you think of this project? What could I have done better or differently. What are you working on? What are you enthusiastic about at the moment, or who has inspired and encouraged you? Give me some recommendations. But whatever you tell me in the comments, it'd be great to say hi.